The security alert pinged on my phone while I was reviewing contracts at my downtown office. Someone had entered the guest house. I frowned at the screen. Marcus was supposed to be in Singapore for the tech conference. Our estate manager hadn't mentioned any maintenance visits. I pulled up the camera feed and watched a young woman unlock the door with a key I didn't recognize. She was visibly pregnant, maybe 6 months along. She moved through the space like she owned it, dropping shopping bags on the couch and kicking off her shoes. My heart didn't race. My hand stayed steady on my desk. After 12 years of marriage to Marcus Castellano, I'd learned to read the signs. The late nights that didn't match his calendar. The new credit card I'd noticed on his desk last month. The way he'd insisted on personally handling the guest house renovations. I screenshotted the footage and texted my lawyer. Need to talk. Today if possible. Within an hour, I was sitting across from Patricia Chun in her corner office. Patricia studied the security footage on my laptop, her expression carefully neutral. She'd handled my family's legal matters for 20 years. She knew every clause of the prenuptial agreement Marcus had signed when we married. How long has this been going on? She asked. I pulled up more screenshots from the past 3 weeks. The same woman, coming and going at regular intervals. Always when Marcus claimed to be traveling. At least a month that I can prove, I said. Maybe longer. Patricia leaned back in her leather chair. Does he know you have access to those cameras? I shook my head. He thinks I only monitor the main house. I had the guest house system installed separately last year when we had that break-in scare. She smiled slightly. Smart. I'd learned to be smart. Marcus came from old money, the kind that built empires and destroyed anyone who threatened them. But I came from something he'd underestimated. A family of lawyers and real estate developers who taught me to always protect myself. Do you remember Clause 17 of your prenup? Patricia asked, pulling up the document on her screen. I nodded slowly. The infidelity clause. She turned the monitor toward me, highlighting the specific paragraph. I read it again, even though I'd memorized it years ago. If either party engaged in adultery during the marriage, they would forfeit their claim to any assets acquired during the union. Everything would go to the innocent spouse. He made me sign it, I said quietly. Said it would protect both of us. That neither of us would ever have to worry about being cheated on because the consequences would be too severe. Patricia's smile widened. And now he's violated it spectacularly. Marcus owned a tech empire worth $3 billion, but he built most of it after we married, using the connections and capital my family had provided. His company, Castellano Technologies, had been a struggling startup when we met. My father's investment firm had funded his breakthrough. Our marriage had opened doors that old money alone couldn't access. I spent the next week collecting evidence. The security cameras captured everything. The woman arriving with suitcases. Marcus visiting late at night when he was supposedly at the office. Grocery deliveries addressed to apartment guest house. I hired a private investigator who confirmed her identity within 48 hours. Her name was Vanessa Price, 26 years old, former executive assistant at Castellano Technologies. She'd resigned 4 months ago, right around the time she would have started showing. The investigator's report included bank statements. Marcus had opened a separate account and was transferring $50,000 monthly to Vanessa. He'd leased a car in her name, paid for her medical expenses at an exclusive private clinic. He'd even listed himself as the father on her maternity intake forms. He wasn't just having an affair. He was building a whole separate life. And he was doing it on my property in my guest house with my husband's money that should have been our money. Marcus came home on Friday night, kissing my cheek like nothing was wrong. How was Singapore? I asked, setting down my wine glass. He loosened his tie, launching into a detailed story about meetings and investors. Every word was smooth, practiced, believable. If I hadn't seen the security footage of him entering the guest house that very morning, I might have believed him. Exhausting, he sighed. I'm glad to be home. I smiled and asked about dinner. We ate together like we had for 12 years, discussing his business and my work at the real estate development firm my family owned. I'd built that company's legal division from nothing. Marcus had always called it my little project, even though it generated $200 million annually. After dinner, he excused himself for a call. I watched him walk toward his office, then pulled up the security feed on my phone. 20 minutes later, he appeared on camera, walking across our property to the guest house. I watched him knock softly before entering. Through the window, I could see Vanessa greeting him. She was wearing one of his old college sweatshirts. He put his hand on her belly, and even through the grainy footage, I could see him smiling, something he rarely did at home anymore. I took screenshots of everything. Him kissing her, them sitting together on the couch, his hand never leaving her stomach. He stayed for an hour before returning to the main house. When he slipped back into bed beside me, he smelled like her perfume. "Everything okay?" I murmured, pretending to wake up. "Just some investor issues," he whispered. "Go back to sleep." I closed my eyes and calculated. The baby would be born in about 3 months. He was probably planning to wait until after the birth to tell me. Maybe he thought he could convince me to accept this new arrangement. Rich men did it all the time, right? Kept their wives and their mistresses. But Marcus had forgotten something crucial. He'd forgotten who he married. Monday morning, I met with Patricia and her team. We spread the evidence across the conference table. Security footage, bank statements, text messages the investigator had recovered, medical records listing Marcus as the father. "It's airtight," Patricia confirmed. "The prenup is crystal clear. Adultery means he forfeits everything acquired during the marriage." Her associate, a sharp young lawyer named Kevin, pulled up a financial breakdown. Castellano Technologies was worth approximately $50 million when you married. Today it's worth $3 billion. The growth happened entirely during your marriage, funded partially by your family's investments and connections. I studied the numbers. Marcus had built his empire thinking he was untouchable, but he'd built it on my foundation. "What about the baby?" I asked. Patricia nodded. "Child support will be calculated separately, but the business, the assets, the properties, all of it becomes yours if we prove adultery." I thought about Vanessa, pregnant and living in my guest house. She probably thought she'd won. I spent that week preparing. Patricia filed the divorce papers but held them, waiting for my signal. I hired a forensic accountant to trace every dollar Marcus had spent on Vanessa. I documented every lie, every business trip, every time he'd claimed to be working late. On Friday, Marcus announced he had another investor meeting in Tokyo. He'd be gone for a week. I smiled and helped him pack. The moment his car left the driveway, I walked across the property to the guest house. I knocked firmly. Vanessa opened the door, her eyes widening when she saw me. She was wearing expensive maternity clothes I recognized from the boutique downtown. Clothes my husband had bought her. "Mrs. Castellano," she stammered. "We need to talk," I said calmly, stepping inside before she could close the door. The guest house had been completely renovated. New furniture, a nursery half-assembled in the second bedroom, expensive baby items still in boxes. My guest house had become her home. Vanessa backed away, one hand protectively on her belly. "I can explain." "No need," I interrupted. "I know everything." "How long?" She swallowed hard. 9 months. We met at the company holiday party last year. I did the math. Marcus had been sleeping with her while planning our 12th anniversary trip to Paris, while holding my hand at my mother's funeral, while promising we'd start trying for our own children soon. "Does he love you?" I asked. She hesitated. "He says he does. He says he's going to leave you after the baby comes. That we're going to be a family." I almost laughed. Instead, I pulled out my phone and showed her the prenuptial agreement. "Read clause 17. She squinted at the screen, her face slowly draining of color. "What does this mean?" "It means if Marcus leaves me for you, he loses everything. The company, the money, the houses, all of it becomes mine." Her hand trembled. "But he said—" "He lied," I said simply. "Did he tell you he's worth $3 billion? Did he explain that if he divorces me to be with you, he'll walk away with whatever he earned before our marriage? About $50 million before taxes and legal fees." Vanessa sank onto the couch. $50 million is still. Split that with me in the divorce settlement for the child," I continued. "Then factor in that his company will likely collapse without my family's business connections. Marcus might end up with $20 million if he's lucky. Still rich, but not billionaire rich. She stared at me. You're lying. He wouldn't risk everything for me if. I pulled up the security footage on my phone. I have 3 weeks of video. Him sneaking over here. You two together. I have his bank transfers to you. Medical records listing him as the father. Text messages discussing the baby. I watched her face crumble. I have everything I need to destroy him in court. And the moment I file these divorce papers, it all starts. What do you want? Vanessa whispered. I want you to understand your position, I said. You're carrying the child of a man who's about to lose everything. He can't marry you without destroying himself financially. And even if he did, you'd be raising a baby with a man who resents you for costing him billions. She started crying. I didn't feel sorry for her. She'd known he was married. She'd moved into my property, lived off my money, and carried on with my husband thinking there would be no consequences. I loved him, she sobbed. He said you didn't care, that your marriage was just for show. Our marriage was real, I said coldly, until he decided to throw it away. I stood up, straightening my jacket. You have until Monday to move out. After that, I'm filing eviction papers. She looked up, mascara running down her face. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem, but I'd suggest figuring it out quickly. I walked back to the main house and poured myself a glass of wine. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Papers ready when you are. I typed back, Monday morning. Serve him at the office. Marcus called that evening from Tokyo, his voice cheerful. Missing you, he said. How's everything at home? Quiet, I replied. The guest house security system flagged something earlier. I should probably have someone check it out. I heard him pause. What kind of flag? Just a motion sensor. Probably nothing. Another pause. I'll have building maintenance look at it when I get back. Sure, I said sweetly. Enjoy your meeting. After we hung up, I checked the guest house cameras. Vanessa was frantically packing, throwing clothes into suitcases. Her phone was pressed to her ear. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could guess. She was calling Marcus, warning him that I knew. My phone rang 20 minutes later. Marcus, calling back. Hey, he said, his voice tight. I forgot to mention, I might need to cut the Tokyo trip short. Some issues came up. What kind of issues? I asked innocently. Just business stuff. I'll probably be home Sunday instead of next Friday. Okay, I said. I'll make sure there's food in the house. After we hung up, I texted Patricia, change of plans. Serve him Sunday morning at home. She responded immediately. Perfect. More dramatic. I'll have the sheriff ready. I spent Saturday watching Vanessa move out through the security cameras. She made 3 trips to a moving truck, loading boxes and furniture. By evening, the guest house was empty except for the nursery furniture Marcus had bought. I had maintenance remove it all on Sunday morning. When Marcus arrived home that afternoon, there was no trace of her. He came through the door with his suitcase, looking exhausted. Rough trip? I asked. He nodded. You have no idea. I smiled. Want some coffee? We sat in the kitchen, and I watched him fidget with his cup. He kept glancing at his phone, probably waiting for a text from Vanessa that wasn't coming. Everything okay? I asked. Fine, he said quickly. Just tired. The doorbell rang at 9 the next morning. Marcus was still in his robe, reading the newspaper. I knew exactly who it was. I'll get it, I said, but I moved slowly, letting him reach the door first. A sheriff's deputy stood on our doorstep, holding an envelope. Marcus Castellano? Marcus frowned. Yes. You've been served. He handed Marcus the papers and walked away. I watched my husband's face as he opened the envelope. Watched the color drain from his skin. Watched his hand start shaking. What is this? He whispered. Divorce papers, I said calmly, with a full accounting of your affair with Vanessa Price, including evidence of your violation of Clause 17 of our prenuptial agreement. He looked up at me, and for the first time in 12 years, I saw real fear in his eyes. You knew, he breathed. I've known for weeks, I said. I have security footage of you visiting her in our guest house. Bank statements showing your payments to her. Medical records listing you as the father of her baby. Marcus stumbled backward, gripping the papers. Claire, I can explain. Don't bother, I interrupted. Read page 7. The clause you made me sign 12 years ago. The one that says adultery means you forfeit all assets acquired during our marriage. He flipped through the papers frantically, his breath coming in short gasps. No, no, it can and it does, I said. Castellano Technologies, built during our marriage with my family's money and connections, becomes mine. The properties, the investment accounts, the cars, all mine. He looked like he might vomit. You can't do this. You did it to yourself, I replied. The moment you moved your pregnant mistress into my guest house. His phone started buzzing. Probably Vanessa, wondering what was happening. He ignored it. Where is she? Marcus demanded. Gone, I said. I told her to leave on Saturday. The guest house is empty. His face went red. You had no right. I had every right, I cut him off. It's my property. She was trespassing. He started pacing, running his hands through his hair. The perfect, controlled Marcus Castellano was falling apart. This will destroy me, he said. Everything we built, I corrected. Using my family's money, my connections, my support while you played entrepreneur. He stopped pacing and looked at me with something like hatred. I loved her. I felt nothing. No pain, no anger, just cold satisfaction. You loved her enough to risk $3 billion. That's touching. His phone rang again. This time he answered it. Not now, Vanessa. I could hear her crying through the speaker, asking what was happening. I said not now. He hung up and threw his phone across the room. We can fight this, Marcus said, his voice desperate. I'll get lawyers. I'll prove you're trying to steal my company. My lawyers are better, I said calmly. And I have Patricia Chen, who's been handling my family's legal matters for 20 years. She knows every loophole, every clause, every precedent. He glared at me. Your father will never let this happen. He invested in my company. He wants it to succeed. I smiled. I called my father last week. Showed him the evidence. Want to know what he said? Marcus went pale. He said he always knew you were a snake. That he only invested because I asked him to. And that if you think you can cheat on his daughter and keep his money, you're even dumber than he thought. That was the moment Marcus realized he'd lost. Not just his marriage, not just his mistress, but everything he'd built his identity around. What do you want? He asked quietly. I want exactly what the prenup guarantees me, I said. Everything acquired during our marriage. Your company, our properties, the investment accounts. You get to keep what you earned before we married and whatever personal items you want. He laughed bitterly. That's barely $50 million after taxes. Should have thought of that before you violated Clause 17, I said. What about Vanessa's baby? That's between you and her, I replied. Child support will be calculated based on your actual income, which is about to decrease significantly. He sank into a chair, defeated. I never meant to hurt you. Yes, you did, I said. You just didn't think you'd get caught. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia, his lawyers called. They want to negotiate. I showed Marcus the message. Your lawyers are already trying to settle. Smart move. He looked up at me. What happens now? Now you move out, I said. Today. Pack your things and leave. Marcus spent the next 3 hours packing. I watched him move through our home, selecting clothes and personal items. He kept stopping, staring at photos of us from happier times. I really did love you, he said as he closed his final suitcase. Once upon a time. Once upon a time isn't good enough, I replied. He dragged his bags to the door, then turned back. You planned this perfectly. You must have hated me for a long time. I shook my head. I didn't hate you. I just knew better than to trust you completely. My mother taught me that. His eyes narrowed. Your mother told you to spy on me? My mother told me to always protect myself, I corrected. She said men like you, men who marry into money, always think they're smarter than their wives, that they can get away with anything because they underestimate us. Marcus flinched. Men like me. Yes, I said. Men who think 50 million is nothing, who risk billions for a 26-year-old assistant, who hide pregnant mistresses in guest houses. After Marcus left, I walked through the empty house. 12 years of marriage, gone in a single morning. I should have felt sad, but I only felt relieved. My phone rang. Patricia. His lawyers want to settle immediately. They know they can't win. What are they offering? I asked. Full surrender, she said. They'll agree to all terms of the prenup if you let him keep 20% of Castellano Technologies, enough to maintain some dignity and income. I considered it. 20% of $3 billion was still $600 million. He'd be able to provide for Vanessa and the baby, live comfortably, if not lavishly. Counter offer, I said. He keeps 15%. And he publicly announces he's stepping down as CEO due to personal misconduct. Patricia laughed. Brutal. I love it. Can you make it happen? Already drafting the papers, she said. His lawyers will cave by end of day. She was right. By 6 that evening, Marcus had agreed to everything. The news broke the next morning. Tech billionaire Marcus Castellano steps down after violating prenuptial agreement. The story spread like wildfire. Business journals, gossip sites, social media. Everyone wanted to discuss the CEO who'd lost billions because he couldn't keep his marriage vows. My phone exploded with calls. Friends, family, reporters. I ignored them all except one. My father. Proud of you, sweetheart, he said. You handled this exactly right. You taught me well, I replied. I taught you to protect yourself, he said. But you were smart enough to actually do it. Your mother would be proud, too. That made my eyes sting. My mother had died 2 years ago, while Marcus was secretly starting his affair with Vanessa. She never knew her son-in-law was a cheater. Maybe that was a blessing. The company's board called an emergency meeting. They wanted to discuss the transition of power. I was now the majority shareholder and de facto owner. I walked into the Castellano Technologies boardroom wearing my mother's pearls and my best suit. 12 board members sat around the table. All men, all looking uncomfortable. Gentlemen, I said, taking Marcus's seat at the head of the table. Let's talk about the future. They shifted nervously. These were Marcus's friends, his investors, his supporters. They'd probably expected me to sell my shares and disappear. First item, I continued. I'm appointing myself interim CEO until we find a permanent replacement. Silence. Then one of the older board members cleared his throat. Mrs. Castellano, with all due respect, you don't have experience running a tech company. I smiled. I have a law degree from Yale and an MBA from Harvard. I've spent 12 years watching my husband build this company while managing my own real estate development firm. I understand business. Another board member spoke up. The optics might be difficult. The press will say you're unqualified. The press will say I'm a woman who refused to let a cheating husband steal from her, I corrected. And our stockholders will appreciate that I protected their investment. Over the next month, I transformed Castellano Technologies. I brought in new executives from my own network. I cut costs Marcus had hidden in bloated budgets. I made strategic partnerships he'd been too proud to pursue. The stock price, which had dropped 20% after Marcus's scandal, recovered and climbed higher than ever. Business journals started calling me a savvy turnaround specialist. The same reporters who'd questioned my qualifications were now praising my leadership. Marcus watched it all from his new apartment downtown. He'd moved Vanessa in with him, and according to friends, they were miserable. She'd given birth to a boy. Marcus paid his child support on time, but his 15% of the company didn't maintain the lifestyle he'd promised her. No more private jets or designer shopping sprees. No more exclusive restaurants or luxury vacations. Just a comfortable but ordinary life. Vanessa had left him within 6 months. She'd wanted the billionaire, not the millionaire. I heard she'd moved back to her hometown with the baby. A year after the divorce, I hosted Castellano Technologies' annual shareholder meeting. The company had grown by 40% under my leadership. We'd launched 3 new products and acquired 2 competitors. I stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of investors who doubted me. When I took over this company, I said, many of you questioned whether I could lead it. Today, our stock price has reached an all-time high. Revenue is up. Innovation is thriving. I hope that answers your questions. The applause was thunderous. After the meeting, a young woman approached me. She looked nervous but determined. Mrs. Castellano, I'm writing my business school thesis on your turnaround of this company. Could I interview you? I smiled. What do you want to know? How did you do it? She asked. How did you take a scandal and turn it into success? I thought about Marcus, about Vanessa, About that day, I'd watched security footage of my husband's betrayal. I protected myself first, I said. Then I used what was already mine. 2 years later, I was featured on the cover of a major business magazine. The CEO who took back everything. The article detailed my journey from betrayed wife to tech industry leader. It talked about the prenup, about Marcus's affair, about how I'd transformed his company into something greater than he'd ever imagined. The writer asked if I'd ever forgiven him. Forgiveness isn't the point, I told her. Learning from the experience is. Marcus reached out occasionally, usually through lawyers about minor business matters. He'd started a small consulting firm and was rebuilding his reputation. We were cordial but distant. The life we'd shared felt like something from another world. I sold the mansion and bought a penthouse downtown, donated the guest house property to a women's shelter, a bit of poetic justice, built a new life that belonged entirely to me. And every time I walked into my office at Castellano Technologies, I passed the framed prenuptial agreement on my wall. The document Marcus had insisted we sign to protect both of us. He'd been right about one thing. It had protected someone. It just hadn't been him.